Okay, today's movie is The Last Chase from 1981. I'd never heard of this movie. A friend texted me and asked me if I heard of it, so I never had. So I watched it. He's got a lot to answer for because this movie is bad. All right, what's it about? Well, stars Lee Majors from $6 Million Man, Fall Guy, and in the future, there was a pandemic that killed tons of people. So at first I'm like, okay, that's too real. But realistically, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything except his Lee Major's character, his wife and kid died.
Going home was always the hardest part. My wife and my son were among the first to be stricken by the disease.
And I think it kind of gives the filmmakers an excuse as to why it's so sparsely populated, this world. Anyway, that was like 20 years ago. And at the same time, they banned all personal means of transportation. There is some lip service that they ran out of oil, but they don't really go into it. So there are no cars and no planes, no nothing. People are running around, going around on bicycles and on buses. And even the police have these little, they're not quite golf carts, but they're sort of, battery powered electric vehicles. Well, Lee Majors, he used to be a race car driver. So he's all mad. He's like, oh, I can't drive anymore. Even though it's been 20 years, he's been simmering about this for 20 years. And for some reason, he is employed by the government or something to go out and pitch how awesome it is now that nobody has their own vehicles.
Good morning. My name is Franklin Hart, and I've been asked to explain to you some of the advances being made by your mass transit authority.
Well, there's also a teenage boy who he's getting picked on in school, and he's also mad. And one day, Lee Majors, he's supposed to be giving a speech to kids about, yay, public transportation's awesome. But he's like, back in my day, we had freedom.
I've been explaining about these advances for 2 decades now. I was chosen for this job because I was a race car driver. Racing cars are vehicles that could go at incredible speeds and compete with each other. They were private vehicles. Yes, private vehicles. So you see, I was chosen for this job, something like a reformed sinner talking to a church congregation.
They took away my car. And the kid's like, yeah. So.
Which is mainly a lot of rules. I mean, there's thousands of them. They're growing like mushrooms.
This is a dystopian future, in case you couldn't tell, where they're monitoring everybody.
We've installed video cameras over at the confiscation yards.
In the old days, we called them junkyards.
These aren't the old days, Mr. Hart. According to your files, you might be having trouble adjusting.
Your files are right. The old days were better.
You realize that with all the minor offenses against you, you are now automatically scheduled for a hearing. You could be sent to a rehabilitation center.
Jail.
A rehabilitation center. It's next Friday.
For breaking rules.
Laws.
Lady, you got too goddamn many laws.
So they're getting ready to, arrest Lee Majors for daring to speak out against public transportation. And the kid is there with him. So Lee Majors, and kind of reminded me of John Wick. Of course, John Wick was, 30 years later, where Lee Majors' character had a car buried in his house. So he had dug up the car and put it back together. And as the cops are there, Lee Majors and the kid convinces Lee Majors to let him go with them. So Lee Majors, and the teenage boy escape. Apparently it's a Porsche 917. I don't know. It's a race car that's clearly not really meant to be driven cross country. And they are driving cross country because they have heard a pirate radio broadcast that talking about come to California.
This is Radio Free California calling America.
Apparently, in this future, California is a separate country or something. They didn't really explain that. And then they spend the rest of the movie driving across country. The beginning of the movie is the most interesting part because it puts this very libertarian vision of the future, dystopian vision, right? It's like pro-libertarian vision of like, this is what's going to happen if we let the government control us. But then after that, it just kind of meanders and it's incredibly dumb. At points I was like, was this a TV movie? But early on, and then this is another point where we're supposed to see that the current society is wrong. One of Lee Major's friends takes him to a party where people are having sex. And of course, Lee Major, he's not having any of it. But as I said after that, it just goes downhill. Because the movie is so ridiculous. How ridiculous is it? Well, it's so ridiculous that this ban on cars is so complete that not even the government has a car. So government cannot catch Lee Majors in his Porsche. And what do they decide to do? Well, we get these scenes in this room, looks like straight out of Kubrick's imagination of what would he do if he combined Strangelove and 2001, where we have one of our evil rulers. She's like, we'll just radio ahead and set up a roadblock. And they try that, and it fails. So they instantly give up. Oh, no more roadblocks. We're not going to try that again. Then another dude comes in, and he really loves to give speeches.
It's much more than a car and two men.
Well, that's all I can see.
This man's dangerous. This little joyride he's on is undermining the entire balance of this country. We live in a society that has the greatest tranquility ever created by man. Furthermore, this society is more protected than any other in history. And do you know why?
Well, I figured.
Because of the system.
And he's like, we're going to chase him in a plane. Okay, I guess. But this ban on personal motorized vehicles is so complete. Apparently the government doesn't have airplanes anymore either. So they get an old timer out of retirement and they have to get an airplane out of like a museum. And who's the old timer? Burgess Meredith. That's right. Batman's the Penguin. And so Burgess Meredith is tasked with chasing down Lee Majors before Lee Majors gets to California. Hence the last chase. So, like I said, at parts, I'm thinking this is almost like a TV movie. The kid only exists because it's clear he's going to be a surrogate for Lee Major's son. And so they have a couple hijinks.
Call me maniac, huh? Here's a towel.
And at one point, the kid even asked, was I much like your son or whatever? And the bad guy lots to give speeches, but they're supposed to explain his logic, but they really just seem like the mentally unstable ramblings. And there are just scenes that go on and nothing actually happens. And there's another scene where there's Lee Majors and Burgess Meredith. Burgess Meredith has kind of gone rogue, and so they're playing chicken. And Burgess Meredith has landed his plane on the road, and so they're racing toward each other. And they have surveillance everywhere, so I don't know why they just can't radio ahead. They tried that once and gave up, but they're going toward each other, they're spinning up, and the guy who is working for the bad guy, he gets so excited, 100, 200, and he starts cheering.
250!
Is he so excited that people are going fast? I don't know. Then, spoilers, he gets to California and they just give up. So again, is California a separate country now? I don't know. With a name like The Last Chase, you'd think there would be some chase scenes, but no. They can't. And it's mostly because the car there's no windshield on it. And so they can't drive it very fast because the wind is so fast. There are scenes of Lee Majors and the kid driving it, and they're probably not going more than 30 or 40 miles an hour, but you can tell they're very uncomfortable. And the only time the car actually does go fast is that scene I mentioned when they go up to 250. And surprisingly, Lee Majors, that one time only, stops and puts a helmet on. I'm sure that's really him and not a stunt double. Weird. So, yeah, this movie's so bad. 3 thumbs down. You'll have to pay me more than $6 million to watch this again. But if you do want to watch it, I put some links below where you can find it. And as always, like, subscribe, hit that bell.